Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot. We're going to get into advice that should prepare you for any marketing challenge that lies ahead. I want to remind you that you can get in touch with the show at Funnel Reboot via the website, via our Instagram or Twitter accounts. Love to hear from you. In 1942, economist Joseph Schumpeter claimed that there was something at the core of our whole economic system. It was a process of industrial mutation that incessantly revolutionizes the economic structure from within, incessantly destroying the old one and incessantly creating a new one. That quote is from his description of a term called creative destruction. Half a century later, a professor named Clayton Christiansen came along writing something called the Innovator's Dilemma. He described that as a problem. The problem is that large companies, by doing what they must do to keep their margins strong and their stock price healthy, they pave the way for their own disruption. The reason why it's so difficult for these firms to capitalize on disruptive innovations is that their processes and their business model that make them good at the existing business actually make them bad at competing for the disruption. Well, which of these two is telling the truth? They both are, because it depends on the companies and the individuals within them. It's up to them whether they will change with the times or be left behind. Our guest today is a former VP of Marketing and of Sustainability for global Fortune companies. Along the way in this 30-year career, she led a number of complex business transformations. These experiences led her to develop something she calls the Marketing Flexology Management Framework. And it can help you outsmart change in your own career and as a part of your team. Now, I think that she got this term probably inspired by the name of the company where she honed many of these methods. And this was at Flex, formerly known as Flextronics. There, she was VP of Corporate Marketing and Global Citizenship. She also worked as a VP of Marketing Strategy and Effectiveness for HP, leading a global project management office that aligned HP's global strategy and marketing priorities. Since doing those things, she works through customized workshops, presentations, and collaborations to share what she's learned. And she came out with these codified in a book called Marketing Flexology. Let's go hear from Engelina Jaspers. I'm so glad to welcome Engelina Jaspers. Welcome to the show, Engelina.
I am absolutely delighted to be with you this morning, Glenn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. So we're going to talk about your book. It came out in 2018, and it is called, would you tell me?
Marketing Flexology, How to Outsmart Change and Future-Proof Your Career.
Yeah, and so this book, I find it kind of hard to describe, to be honest, because it has aspects of what I thought it would, which would be career advice, but it also has very much your personal take on how the profession of marketing, how this thing that we practice is done. And it talks a whole lot about the need that there is for marketing to have flexibility, right? So state your case for me and tell me why you think flexibility is such a key part of marketing.
Yeah, so now probably more than ever, since we've just all come out of that pandemic for the last 2 years, 2.5 years, I think we have seen a lot of companies and individuals and careers really take a pause, perhaps, And also understanding that the consumer during the pandemic was largely, or reaching that consumer, that customer was largely through digital means. So those individuals, those marketers that didn't have a high dose of digital acumen were really the ones that were scrambling. And the ones that I've seen that were more flexible, had a camp in both the analog world and the digital world, were the ones that seem to have been able to um, sway with the punches, so to speak,
Yep.
and come out of this much stronger.
Yeah, and you speak it several times in the book about the eras, I guess, of marketing. And one thing that is, I think, appreciated, and one thing that you have the unique vantage point with a 30-year career in marketing, is you don't do what I see done a lot, which is people throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of older marketing. They just kind of outright dismiss the Madison Avenue mass media era. They dismiss everything about it, and they only cling to this highly analytical A/B testing, quant heavy type of marketing. I think one of the things that you pointed out quite rightly is that if we go back to that era, it has to fit within the times. And the times were when the Americas was in the post-war baby boom. And there was, this inflection point of just a few media channels that can have massive reach. But what you also pointed out was that that period ushered in some of the best creativity we have ever seen. And you are blending the things that come from that era with some of the things that come from this era so that we don't over-index too much in any direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. I think marketing, as we've seen, has proliferated from the mass media, mass marketing, mass communications in the era that you're talking about, which is the area where I cut my teeth in marketing, quite frankly, and I got really good at that, to all of a sudden enter digital, enter the internet, but it wasn't an either or it wasn't old marketing versus new marketing. Although at the time I remember when
Yeah.
e-marketing came along, I was threatened. I said, who the heck do they think they are? And why is there a separate group called e-marketing, that are doing online and website and all that? I said, teach me how to be an e-marketer. Because I really felt all along that it wasn't, it didn't need to be a separate effort or a separate group, but it was a new way of doing marketing. But as we know, Glenn, everything old is new again. And they're talking about, the zigzag theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are so tired of, I don't know about you, but my mailbox, the direct mail in my mailbox has dwindled drastically over the years. So now the pundits and the influencers are saying, would direct mail really cut through the clutter?
Yeah.
Right. So it's really important to find a technique or a strategy or a way of resonating or breaking through the clutter that's unique and that's different. Because let's face it, most of us as consumers really are attuned to the new, the different, the shocking, something that breaks through our filters.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's always an add-on. So all the analog marketing that we've done in the past and the e-marketing and now the ABM one-to-one marketing, it's all critically important. And there's been such a proliferation of channels and audiences. And now, with the work from home, there's even a blending of B2B and B2C, because people, you and I, throughout a typical day, you're in all those camps. You're a consumer, you're a customer, you're a large business, you're a small business, you're a parent, you're a guardian, you're a pet mom or whatever you are,
Right.
Yeah.
You see it all.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Going into the career side of things, there's another part of that I felt this everything old is new again. And it was where you were talking about what we have in the workplace. It's obviously a great mixture. There are some baby boomers still in the marketing profession. I'm a Gen Z, so I kind of fit into that bucket. And yet, those are both dwarfed by millennials. And there's even people coming after that. So when we look at those, many pundits talk about how, well, millennials want experience and, they might be more interested in personal time off than, let's say, the, highest edge of the, range for salary, or they might want, some different things that another area doesn't. You kind of, you hit against that. And from the employer standpoint, you make the strong argument to pay them properly. But you also, from the individual side, you tell them something that I haven't heard said in a long time, which is you said, think company first. And when I think when a millennial hears that, they're like, you mean like my grandfather that got the gold watch after decades in one place? And I don't think you quite mean it that way. Tell us what you mean by company first.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on because I have four millennials myself, ourselves, I should say, our family, and they couldn't be different from one another. So I don't think all millennials are the same.
Yeah.
So you have to appeal, but I do think they have a tendency to avoid big companies or anything that seem as old and stodgy.
Yeah.
In fact, funny aside, my daughter got a job after college at Google. And she was there for a year. And most of us would die for a job at Google. My gosh, what a career, what a wonderful career step. She hated it. She thought it was boring. It wasn't relevant to what she was doing. She quit after a year. So I thought, okay, here's the new generation coming up. And I do think, though, that where people foul up, and I don't think it has to do with being old and stodgy and the 40-year watch, staying at the same company.
Right. You didn't mean that.
No, I didn't mean that. What I meant is that when you're faced with any business decision, that it's this term that Korn Ferry called metership, me first.
Yeah.
If you start with me first, what's right for me, and make decisions based on what's right for me, you're going to be one of the career losers, and they're going to quickly decide that they don't need you in the organization, or they're going to see through that.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is team first, so it's me, team, and business. And business is really a pseudonym for customer. So
True.
If you really have the mindset of a customer first or a business first mindset, you can't go wrong. So I always tell my directs, my team, my clients, think about what's the right thing for the solvency of your business and your customer and your company. Because, if you don't have a solvent company, you're not going to have a solvent career. So you can do everything to protect your career and then work for an insolvent company.
Right.
So you're better off doing the right thing for the customer. And then, of course, it's going to impact, what's the right thing for your team. And lastly, what's in it for me? But don't lead with what's in it for me.
Yeah, and well, you say, it's a virtuous circle. The things that you do for the business, if you actually help it, it will come around and help you. I would say for anybody listening who's agency side, you could even take Engelina's point there as being client first to mean that your agency clients, because you also brought up the example of, I think, a CPG CMO who said, we're going to look into our agency's businesses, and if we see waste there, we are going to eradicate that because that's our money that is being wasted.
Absolutely. So that's a very good point, that you have to think, if you're on the agency side, what's the right thing for my client, right?
Yep.
What's the right thing for the client's business? And you're not going to have that client very long if you're thinking about your agency first.
Yep.
Or yourself or your own career progression. You got to think about the client's business. And those are you and I know, those are the agency partners that we keep forever,
Yep.
The ones that look out for us.
That's it. So keeping with this kind of the careerist, marketer, you talk about some things that, I wish people had sat me down and told me in my younger parts of my career, things to do with what happens when an organization sees a change at the top, or if there's just a wholesale replacement of your group. You talk about these things, and I gather you're trying to prep people to think that they will one day be leaders themselves. So, first off, you try to urge them to figure out whether or not, when there's a change, whether or not I need to get off this sinking ship. But you also explain to them that it could be a crucial moment, and you may want to hang with it because this may be a place that vaults you into experiences that you'd never get if you'd been just staying in the status quo.
That's correct. Yeah. So I think the best thing to do when a transformation, well, a couple things, is to be able to spot a transformation and a change at the top, a change of direction. I'm thinking of poor Twitter now with, all the, with all the anxiety that must exist
Sure.
at that company right now, and others that you hear in the news, and you say, wow, this is really a time for marketers. And I do think when I hear those things, this is a time for marketers to take stock. And there's three typical reactions. It's fight, flight, or fright,
Yeah.
right? You can either say, fight it and say, be subversive, or go underground, or say, I'm going to sabotage this effort, which is not a good reaction. You can flight, like, I'm out of here. I'm not taking this crap. I'm out of here,
Yeah.
which could be to your detriment, and unfortunately businesses sometimes lose their top A-level talent because of that flight mentality. They think they can do better somewhere else. And then the third, response to change like this is really fright, where the water cooler talk goes on, where people say, did you hear what happened to Bill?
Yeah.
Oh my God, did you hear they're moving investor relations under corporate communications, or whatever nonsense,
Yeah.
And it's really paralysis, right? People can't move during this change. And so I try to highlight, be on the lookout for these 4 warning signs that change is imminent, and be prepared by having the right dials, the right levers, the right structure in place as a marketing leader or a marketing professional within your organization, so that you can, as I said earlier, sway with the punches when they come,
Yeah.
or be able to pivot, and make the most of it, and be an active member in the change that's happening. There is no better time, Glenn, that I found to get your change or your ideas promoted than during a transformation, because some of the ideas that you may have proposed earlier, management might throw cold water on it. No, that's a nice idea, Angelina, but, maybe later, now's not the right time. During a change initiative or transformation, all of a sudden those ideas are game. People say,
Mm-hmm.
how about if we combine this group with this one? Or how about if we go, put more money in ABM than we do in brand? Or how about if we do expand geographically to other to other areas of the world?
Yeah.
Some of these ideas, they're really looking for some quick fixes. They're looking for people to raise their hand and help them. They're looking for wins that they can expand. They're looking for help. So sometimes the best place to be, during a transformation, I like to say, be the eye of the storm, because that's the eye of the storm is where the calmest, and where it's at the outer edges of that funnel, the hurricane funnel,
Right.
Where people get tossed and turned and, don't know what's happening to them.
Yeah. And you've made that case beautifully. There's the only thing I would add to it is you hasten to mention that the opportunities for you to do this, there are those you create yourself, but there may also be some ones, and they kind of come in disguise. They usually come with, let's say, a senior, person on the leadership team saying to you, as an aside, we have a little project effort we're doing here, and we're looking for someone to volunteer. Or we have an initiative which is just being run on the corner of a desk. We're wondering if you would be able to lend some time to it. These are the moments where you say, raise your hand and give it a look. Push down those questions that you have in your mind of, well, how am I going to get my existing job done? Or how, right? You yourself were seconded when a person left a regional position and you had to add that region to your existing responsibilities. But you said that that was one of the most eye-opening experiences you'd ever had.
Yeah, absolutely. At the time, it felt like a night job had been given to my day job,
Right.
but and I don't think any boss is looking to, um, to bury you with work, but they're looking for people who they know can get things done. And it was a growth opportunity. I learned a new region. I learned how it operates. I learned different clients. It was really an eye opener and a growth opportunity. Another opportunity I had, which I think, so there's this saying, never waste a good crisis.
Yeah.
And it's really true. So when I was at HP, Hewlett Packard, um, Greenpeace appeared on our roof one day, unbeknownst to us, and wrote on the top of the roof, HP equals hazardous products. HP hazardous
Ouch.
products. Oh, yeah. And they had a helicopter in tow, as Greenpeace so beautifully
Right.
does. And it was
Captured
on the
it.
morning
Sure.
news. And, they had a recording from Captain Kirk of, Star Trek, appealing to all employees on their phones. At that time, there was desk phones with recorders, all that kind of stuff. And of course, our CEO at the time was extremely upset that Greenpeace,
Yep.
had appeared on the roof. It was a breach of security. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. How did they climb on top of corporate headquarters? And he huddled. And, of course, the second question was, how did this happen? Who's in charge of all this? And he huddled his direct reports, which I worked for one of his direct reports, the CMO. And by the end of the day, I was approached and said by my boss and said, Angelina, you're going to run environmental sustainability for HP moving forward.
Right.
And I was like, what? I was running the Americas region marketing, and now I'm going to be environmental sustainability. And yes, I'm a good recycler. And, I like nature and hiking and, but I'm certainly not an environmental scientist.
Right.
And so I said, me, and he said, you don't have to worry about that. There's plenty of capable people that understand environmental science and materials, and all that, and recycle, the product take back.
Sure.
What you know how to do is get things done. So I said, I'm in. Even though I loved my current job, I said I'm in. And those next 3 years were fabulous. It was a mission that the company, or an imperative that the company believed in.
Mm-hmm.
We actually had great DNA or great credentials. It was really more, we hadn't done a good job of organizing the story and the proof points and aligning the organization and communicating that with our stakeholders, not just Greenpeace,
Sure.
but all of our stakeholders. And we turned that thing around.
Okay, so you were trying. It wasn't that it was a shambles and you were trying to put lipstick on the pig. You were
Exactly.
There was just not an articulation of what HP had already done.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was wonderful. But that again is an opportunity to say, I could have said, oh no, this, I love my job. I like
Sure.
my team. I like my people. I'm going from, a big team, big budget to, a non-existing team with a couple measly dollars,
Yeah.
I could have said for my career growth, but it was really a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. So yes, raising your hand is one of the best things you could do.
This one example, though, I love it because maybe this is a narrative thing that we all do to ourselves, but we often think that, they're sitting in the boardroom imagining how they can dump more stuff on us, or, that we already have enough uncertainty. Don't they know that? Well, you, by the end of that day, were christened to, look after this. But yet, at the beginning of the day, not even the CEO knew that this was going to be a priority.
Yeah,
right. So
exactly.
this is where we have to maybe counter some of that thinking about the higher ups. We have to remember that organizations must be nimble just because that's the world we're in.
You hit it right on the head. That's absolutely right. Change is inevitable. So you can see the warning signs of change, but the dirty little secret is it's going to happen whether you're prepared for it or not. Change is going to, we best be prepared, have the right organization, the right structure, the right people in place, be on our toes. So that's the best we can do, is to be be change is inevitable, preparation is optional.
Yes,
Right.
very well put. And it's so interesting. You pointed out at one section how marketing in general has more than its fair share of uncertainty. Uh, Perhaps we've brought this on ourselves, or whatever. But you pointed out, for example, that we have not necessarily got the kind of professional development and standardization, right? We don't have a central code. We actually look to the courts, to the commercial, commerce legislation and court case history to tell us whether or not we can or can promote something in a certain way. We don't have standardized reporting like a balance sheet like finance does. And that in our own field, there is always tension between people from different schools of marketing. You've mentioned ABM, but we see it in digital, we see it in out of home, we see it in B2C versus B2B. So I guess we have to realize that if we are in this profession, all of this rather chaotic uncertainty is just part of what we already do. And, would you agree with me that maybe we can just flip this on its head and say, well, if we have already managed to get by in this quagmire of uncertainty, who better in an organization to handle what's to come next and to respond to that change? Like, if anybody can, I guess we're the best prepared.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we could become a center of excellence for the organization when it comes to transformation, change, and knowing the customer. Who best to represent the customer view than the chief marketing officer or the marketing leader?
Mm-hmm.
Just like you want the head of HR to be an advocate for the employee in the room at any of these meetings,
Yeah.
you want the head of marketing to be the advocate for the customer in the room when any of these decisions are being made. Jeff Bezos at Amazon,
Mm-hmm.
he had a very interesting thing. He always left 2 or 3 seats in the front of any of his all hands assemblies
Mm-hmm.
vacant in the front. And people would say, why are those 3? Who are those 3 seats for? And he said, they're for the customer. He said, I always want to remember in any of these gatherings that the customer is in the room. And that's really becoming a customer first organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
Putting the customer first, like we talked about, the customer first or business first mindset. If you think about it and make decisions that way, and, what do you think about that, Glenn? The Center of Excellence for Customer Insight and Change Initiatives or something of that nature.
Sure. I can't say that in my own business or in the business that the businesses of clients that I have that I see that a lot, but I think it's within reason and we've got a shot.
Yeah.
And I think you provide a pretty good roadmap for that. Need to break away from our conversation for a message about something that almost every marketer is affected by. Google moving us from Universal Analytics, or UA, to Google Analytics 4. After June 30, 2023, GA4 will be the only way to see our analytics. While it's called an upgrade to UA, it only takes a glance to know GA4 is a totally different product. Its data is all new, too, meaning there's no easy way to bring UA reports you knew and loved to the GA4 interface. Since GA4 only starts collecting data once it's installed, companies wonder how they'll get everything, both past and future data, reported through this new interface. Is the only option to make it all over from scratch? No, there's another way. All the web analytics data that's in the interface is also available in Google's cloud database. B2B companies have data in silo systems that could be combined with this raw data and historicals to see their entire funnel. This enables you to fetch answers you'd never get from the old Google Analytics. Someone asks marketing a what-if question? You can use data anywhere in your company to answer it. Visualize interactions with prospects to better learn how they like to be treated. Have people who always ask for the same data? Make an automated dashboard for them. The learning curve for marketers here is steep, but you can make this leap, working hands-on in a supervised setting. That's why I am leading a live workshop to get you there. The GA Fast Forward workshop goes beyond installing GA4 and setting up conversions with Tag Manager. You'll learn how to normalize data coming from ad platforms and internal systems and pipe them to Google Cloud. Google Data Studio will then present it in the best way for getting your story across. By working directly on the tools for 2 days plus post-workshop support, you'll become very confident in using them. The first workshop is in Ottawa this October. Go to GA Fast Forward for all the details. It's also being held in other cities, so put yourself down to be notified when yours comes up, or nominate your city to be put on the tour. Those who want to take advantage of the Google Analytics stack should check out this program by visiting gafastforward.com. You can spell forward with the numeral 4 in the middle, as in GA4, or the normal spelling of the words to get there. That's it for the message. Let's get back to our guest. This is probably a good time to mention the mix of things that you propose somebody has in marketing flexology. And there are 4 main pieces to, how you, because we can't do this all at once, right? If we're going to do it, there has to be some method here. So can you take us through what those 4 are?
Yeah, so I try to distill it into a framework. And half of the framework is a mindset, and half the framework is the tool set.
Right.
And quite frankly, Glenn, the tool set is a lot easier to adopt and to and to communicate than the mindset. Because the mindset, like we said, is a business first mindset, being agile, being accountable, thinking of marketing as a fiduciary responsibility.
Right.
Those are all mindset shifts that are harder to teach someone. That's the agility scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the tool set is, I broke it down into 3 parts. The foundation setting, where you're setting the purpose of the organization, having the right people in the right roles, the key processes. And then the dials is the next piece, and the dials are critical. And I'll talk about them. They're people, programs, budgets, and agencies. They're critical, and those are probably the easiest to convey. And then there's the tools. So it's the mindset, the tool set. The tool set is the foundation setting, the 4 dials, and then a handful of simple tools. And when I talk about tools, I'm not talking about the 8,000 MarTech tools that, are proliferating the landscape. I'm talking about good old-fashioned tools like a communications brief, a messaging framework, what a thought, a marketing playbook, a project management office to lead some of these initiatives. So executive dashboard. I'm talking about some real core basic tools that every market.
And in spite of everything you've said about being agile, I think this is one area that you are being particularly rigid, and I welcome it. You are saying that you need to have these things. You say, look at the tragedies that can happen with a sloppy brief. If so think about the client and agency dynamic. It hit me like a bolt of lightning when you said, that if the client is pushing back on writing a brief to say what it is that they want, then they can't really hold the agency responsible, even though they may fire them, for whatever the agency comes back with. These things have to be there because, getting back to your business first mindset, the strategy all comes back to that marketing function, and you can't shirk it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I was on the agency side for a brief period of time. Well, now I'm self-employed or,
so pretty similar.
So
Yep.
It's agency, but I worked in a real agency,
Yep.
So to speak. And how many of your clients would phone in request, on your voicemail and expect you to turn it around the next day? And I thought, I'm not into the business of doing tactics, with that don't add up to, what are we trying to accomplish? How will we know? I was more disciplined in my thinking, I guess, and I just wasn't interested in filling my world in my day with a ton of tactics that I didn't know how they all fit together.
Well, you can, I mean, that's one explanation. And the only other possible explanation is even worse, which is that there's changing strategy at the drop of a hat, and that by the
Yeah.
time they've, headed out the door, oh, there's a new strategy. Like, what? I don't want to work with that company.
Exactly. You just don't want to be a go do it kind of person. Although I'm a very hands-on, get
Well,
things done,
sure,
get her
but we
done.
have to batten some things down. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, spending it, and, that was some good training I had. I started my career at Eastman Kodak Company,
Okay.
and they were very disciplined for whatever you can say about Kodak. And I know they've suffered and stumbled,
Yeah.
but when I worked for them, they were a Fortune 20 company, 95% market share, they could do no wrong, king of the hill,
Yeah.
and, complacency and success breeds complacency. Complacency, breeds failure, like Andy Grove of Intel said, only the paranoid survive.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
a perfect example but anyway, when I was at Kodak, you could not engage an agency unless you could show your manager the communications brief you put together and they would review it. And the discipline that they had was phenomenal. And some people could say, oh, that's fuddy-duddy. We don't have time for this. We're doing 100 things at once. But no, I think that discipline, it only took a half hour, once you got used to it, to write up, who, what, when, where, why, and how,
Yeah.
what are you trying to accomplish, and then give clear direction, to your agency partners. I think it's the least you could do for them, to put some thought behind it, have some strategy instead of just whack-a-mole all day long.
I can't imagine that, even though it sounds kind of like let's slow down, I can't imagine that's ever going to go out of fashion. There's
I agree.
there's just so much chance for, even a bullet that's sent off 1 degree off of the target, by the time it's a quarter mile down, it's actually probably posing a danger to something or someone. So,
Yeah.
Just let's take that tiny bit of time before we fire to aim.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the one thing that I would recommend is for marketers to become more strategic. I do think that we spend a lot of our time going faster, working harder and going faster without really stepping back and being more strategic marketers, asking how this fits into the business objectives, how this is going to move the needle, what else are we doing or could we be doing, to advance whatever challenge that we have. And sometimes going slow means going fast.
Yeah. Another one of these, I'll call it sane approaches, is programs. So I know that's under, your tools area, but it's also in dials. And I think this is a great juncture to kind of explain programs and then why it is one of the dials. So when you talk about programs, you came across in your career many divisions within, an enterprise size company that had let programs mushroom, right? And you are an advocate of let's keep the programs down to a manageable size. And you describe something called the program to people ratio. Can you tell us about
Yeah.
that?
Sure. So hopefully most marketers have heard of people to program ratio. Most consulting companies, whether it's Deloitte or Gartner or any of the others, talk about it. But they say to have a healthy marketing program for B2B. So some companies are B2C. It's usually 30% people of your marketing envelope.
Yeah.
Have 30% of that envelope be invested in people and 70% in programs. And by programs, it can be everything from communications programs, PR programs, demand programs, brand programs, customer loyalty programs, whatever kind of program is needed for that business. But if you keep those in balance, and I've seen companies where they have 50-50
Okay.
people program, and then when the management says we got to cut things 20%, they're forced to cut their people, right? Because it's like, well, do I cut my demand gen programs? No. Do I,
Right.
Or I found a lot of professionals who had a lot of their program dollars locked up in long-term
Right. We've
commitments.
always
So
done that. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I signed that 10-year deal with the Olympics because it was such a good deal. And now all of a sudden, $2 million of your budget every year is allocated. And when perhaps you should be spending it on customer retention,
Right. Right.
or demand
Right. But
gen or ABM.
there's like a do not fly zone over that. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So having less fixed costs, I guess the bottom line is having less fixed costs and more variable costs in your marketing budget. And that relates to people and that relates to programs, is the winning formula,
Yeah.
So,
And let's just, in very honest terms, there's a ceiling on how many programs one person can manage. So to keep them in, if one of them's going to rise, you better allocate to have the other one rise.
yeah, totally agree. I think putting more heft behind fewer campaigns is the right answer. And also having, and Coca-Cola does this. I haven't talked to someone from Coca-Cola recently, but a couple years ago when I
Mm-hmm.
did, they had 10% of their marketing budget was allocated to experimentation,
Yep.
which I thought was really good. I like that. It was 70%, if I have my numbers right,
Yep.
70% was allocated to existing programs that generated a healthy return quarter after quarter, year after year. And they'd keep putting more money into that, 70% to keep that engine running. 20% was focused on new programs, whether it's market expansion, a new customer set, ABM, whatever it might be. And then 10% was set aside for experimentation. And that is really, if someone comes to you with a great idea, and the worst thing to say is, we don't have money to fund that, or I'd love to try that pilot program. But that could become one of your 70% core winners moving forward.
Yeah.
So I like that 70-20-10 formula or something like that. Just like I like the 70-30, for
Yep.
people program ratio. Have some kind of, now you might say, or your listeners might say, for my business, it's 60-40 or it's 80-20. It doesn't matter.
No,
It doesn't
it's
matter.
that they're different compartments, and if something is going to supplant something that's already there,
Yeah.
then you try to keep it within that one compartment.
Yeah.
Let the best idea get the funding, but
Yeah.
don't be willy nilly with all 100% of your budget.
Exactly. Yeah, and don't have it all tied up. And I think the bigger issue, or the bigger call to action is, have a handle on it. Think about it. Be strategic and think about your budget that way. How much of it is in fixed, how much is in experimentation, how much of it is in people. And of course, people, there's a fully burdened labor rate with people. So people are more expensive than just their salary and benefits. They're a big element of cost. And today we have such a plethora of people options. We have contractors, we have temporary, we have
Right.
fractional, we have so many different options that you can tap into. It's not just full-time regular employees anymore. There's a balance, to serve your need of your customers and your business.
Yeah, and this is an important point, and we'll tuck it under the budget dial, because I think you you call BS on several practices. I call it financial engineering, where someone decides, and this goes back to that metership, not business first, that they'll earn points with the CFO or the CEO by making some cost figure come under some barrier or some target. So they'll do things like you call out. Someone will finish on a Friday as a full-time employee, come back on a Monday as a contractor. You pointed out, and I'll push back ever so slightly on it, where sometimes people will think that by taking an in-house function and then pushing it out to the agency, that they are free and clear from those non-salary components, benefit and vacation and expense components, source deductions. I would say, living in the agency world, no, you've just pushed them over to another side. That entity has to take care of their people just like you do with yours.
Yeah.
But I suppose the whole point you're trying to make is, don't think that by doing this stuff at the margins that you're actually accomplishing anything. Like, focus on the material stuff. Don't get into these number games.
Yeah. That's absolutely right. And I find a lot of people trying to game the system. And you made some good references of examples of that. Another one that I love doing when people know that you're doing a marketing transformation or whatever, that people get wind of it. Uh, the first thing you, of course, do is work with finance and HR. And with HR, you say how many people in this organization are marketing coded individuals. And it's amazing, and I won't name names, but it's amazing how you'll have 500 marketing coded employees one day, and then after the initiative starts, it's only 300 marketing coded employees. And where did those 200 people go? You didn't have a layoff, no severance packages. Oh, they were really doing sales enablement, or they were really doing IT/marketing stuff. They weren't really marketing people. It's like, great, that's wonderful. Our job is done, right? And as marketing professionals, we've just reduced our marketing headcount budget quite a bit.
Yeah.
But in reality, now sales or IT or someone else is going to have the same exercise, and those same will end up somewhere else.
Yeah, it's just been swept under the rug.
Yeah. People are clever, but it really is a detriment. That's where people first, get on board, don't play games, don't hide your numbers, try to be, well, the best thing to do, of course, is to be a good steward all along and to have those 4 dials in balance so that you have your shift, your piece of the pie in order, when they do come after, and then people will look to you and say, wow, can we build an organization like this person has?
That's the way to do it. And I think you this is probably a point we'll finish with, but it's a wonderful use of something that is already part of our marketing thought process that more people should use on the job. So when you're talking about us, maybe we have a small team and we're also trying to manage up in our organization, and maybe you use the word charter, the CEO or someone on the C level is bringing down to us what is needed. You say that, the real way to prove your worth and that your team and budgets should all be, preserved and perhaps nourished so that you can fulfill this charter is, you said, just think about what a call to action is, right? We do that habitually in marketing. We come up with calls to action, but you said, think about it in terms of your own self. Think about it in terms of the people that you are talking to that are going to help you achieve something. Can you get down to that super simple phrase of, guys, here's what we have to do?
Yeah. No, it's exactly right. We use call to actions all the time. We're experts at it. So what is our own call to action? Is it evolve or die? Is it pivot or get run over? Is it change?
If we say nothing, it's kind of that.
Yeah.
And the problem also is that if we say nothing, people don't know by when they need to do it. And let's not forget, there is urgency. That's something we also put in our calls to action. So why shouldn't we also do it and let people know, you know what? The board is giving us about 2 to 3 quarters to achieve this aim. People want to know that. People want to be able to set their own expectations about how deep they're going to have to dig. So, just think that through. And I just thought that was a great gem for something that, we all know how to do it. So that's not the issue, right? We just have to actually execute on it.
Eat some of our own dog food,
I guess.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. Engelina, it was a thoroughly enjoyable book. If people want to find out how to get it or find out more about what you have in marketing flexology, where can they go?
Well, very simple. Thanks for asking, Glenn. It's really www.marketingflexology.com. or you can Google my name or Marketing Flexology, find me on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm happy to connect and to really share, because I really, at this stage of my life, I really like to share with the next generation of marketing professionals, how to really avoid some of the pitfalls that, I've seen, and we can all learn from one another. So happy to connect.
That we can. Thank you. And I know that I've gotten a lot out of this. For people listening, please do consider going to the website. There's a couple of helpful tools and assessments that you can get on there, and share this episode with a friend that you know wants to do marketing right in their career. I think there's some invaluable advice here for them. And I hope that you've come away with something that you can make your funnel even better.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter @Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.